Hello, you're watching France 24. Time for our paper review now. Florence Villeminot is with us. So Florence, we're looking at the French press first of all this morning. And unrest in the UK is on just about every cover, isn't it? France, of course, has known its fair share of riots in the past 2007, 2005. What are they saying about the UK riots this morning?
Well, we're going to start by looking at the front pages because, as you said, it's just about on the cover of every single paper here in France, starting with Libération, the left-leaning paper, Le Royaume Désunis. It's a play on words. It says the divided kingdom instead of the united kingdom. It's also on the cover of Le Parisien. Pourquoi est-ce que l'Angleterre s'embrase? Why is England going up in smoke? It's also on the cover of the right-leaning newspaper, Le Figaro, which says that there's political unity against the rioting in England. And François says it goes to the heart of the riots. Now, as you said, a lot of French papers are comparing what's going on in England to what happened in France just a couple of years ago. In 2005, there was a series of riots across France that started in Clichy-sous-Bois after two young men were killed trying to escape a police check. And in November 2009, there was another series. This time it wasn't as widespread as in 2005, but a series of riots in Villiers-le-Bel, which is in the north of Paris. And Le Parisien goes back to Villiers-le-Bel and interviews people who actually took part in the riots there to see how they feel about the riots going on in the UK. And they say that though it brings back bad memories, they say it's totally different. The situation in England, it's two different worlds, as they say. However, the Figaro has an opposite point of view. They interview Alain Bauer, who is a criminology professor, and he says that it's a very similar situation in England as in 2005 here in France. He says that the mechanism, the spark, is exactly the same. Two young people who are killed in a police check that goes badly. There are people. The police is accused of trying to cover up the story. This fuels a feeling of injustice and fans the flames of a revolt. And so he says that this is the same factors in Tottenham as in Clichy-sous-Bois. There is ghettoization and there's poverty. Now, Libération has somewhat of a middle position. They say that though the origins and factors are the same, it's too early to know if the rioting will spread in the UK like it did in France here in 2005, because over 3 weeks, up to 300 towns were affected here in France.
Wow, gosh. Well, a lot of the French papers focusing their editorials on the on the UK riots, rather, and having a look at what it means for Western societies in general.
Yes, it's interesting to see that across the political spectrum here in France, between the right-leaning newspapers and the left-leaning newspapers, there's a sense of outrage at these riots. But there's also, they're trying to see what lessons can be learned here in France. So we're going to take a look, first of all, at Libération, which, as I said, was the left-leaning newspaper. Their editorial is rage, and it says that these London riots are a wake-up call for the UK, but also for any Western society where there's a lot of immigration and inequalities. And it says that it reveals the anger of a population that feels excluded, that lives on the outskirts of society. It says that these young people don't feel like they belong to their societies, and that's why they have no qualms about trashing their own neighborhoods. And Libération also swings a punch at the UK's multicultural society. Its model of integration, which is very multicultural, which isn't the same as it is here in France. And it says that the UK has failed to create a common feeling of unity. Now, Le Figaro tries to see what lessons can be learned from Tottenham, and it says that with 1 year to go before the Olympics, London and the UK have a lot to lose, namely their reputation. And La Croix, which is interesting, it's the Catholic newspaper, tries to connect the dots with the current market crisis. They say they wonder whether there are light years between what's happening in Tottenham and what's happening with the unrest we've seen in the city.
And just very briefly, the left-leaning journal Rue 89 also draws a parallel between the market crisis and the riots.
Absolutely. They start by looking at the photos. We've seen these photos of riots. We've seen these photos of unrest on the markets where you've seen these traders, looking really upset. It says, what does this tell us about our society? And says that though, you can't, that it's not exactly the same consequences, where they're not directly linked, but they're part of what it calls the same social landscape, and that European leaders should be trying to pay attention what signals their populations are sending them.
Okay, that's it for the French papers. Thanks very much for joining us, Florence. Stay tuned, we'll have more news coming up shortly.